Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Another Zoom quarterly meeting. We are really hoping that soon we can be back in person again and doing our lunch and learns and socializing and being together. And I think that's coming. We're going to have more on that later. But thanks everyone for joining us today. We have a great program lined up. I'm so excited. We are recording this too because I think it's just going to be phenomenal. We're going to share with you how San Diego is connecting the AHA mission with research dollars locally. Donna Marie is going to introduce our guest shortly. His name is Dr. James Friend. He is a researcher here in San Diego. He has a really fascinating presentation on stroke research that he is doing. It's timely. May is Stroke Awareness Month. In fact, like I said, we're recording tonight's presentation. He can share it with his team at UCSD and we'll be sharing it also with others. We also have another really fun guest tonight, cooking some heart healthy recipe and tips from Chef Leslie Myers with the VEBA Resource Center. She'll do a cooking demo for us. Some of us may remember her from our breakout session during the Go Red for Women event. We're so grateful to VEBA and Chef Leslie, who's going to join us this evening. So before we get into the presentation, I wanted to just take a few minutes to share with you highlights of February's Go Red event. I don't know if everyone was able to join. So here's some highlights. More than 300 people logged on to join us. It was one of the highest attendance for any Go Red event in the Western states, which is really phenomenal if you think about it. In person, we have record-breaking attendance when we have about 500 people. So to get more than 300 people on a virtual event was really great. We surpassed our day of fundraising goal. So thank you to all of you. You were big contributors to that. We raised more than $100,000 the day of the event. In person, our record-breaking is $160,000. So again, reaching more than 100,000 on a digital event was just phenomenal. More than $530,000 has been raised so far towards our annual goal of $1 million. But another thing for us just to reflect on is in just the last 3 years, we've raised more than $2 million to support women's heart health research. And that is really a huge kudos to everyone on this call. And thank you for all of your support and for helping to spread the word. We have been all over the news and media, great coverage for our campaign. You see there more than 25 million media impressions. We had billboards, we had interviews, doc talks, we had survivors sharing their story on the news. It was really phenomenal to raise that awareness. That is our mission, to raise the awareness in San Diego, and we really did a great job in February. We also had a really great VIP event with Catherine Childers. I know some of you were able to join. She was one of the first female Secret Service agents. Great feedback on that. That was one of the first times we've done something like that. And we were really excited that she was able to join us. We had 30 plus people join us for that fireside chat with her. We launched a new program in February. I mentioned this way back in the fall, I think it was. It's called Women of Impact and Teen of Impact. And we had 9 nominees who formed teams of around 10 people. And they were focused on raising vital funds and raising awareness out in the community. They did kind of heart healthy activities and with their team went out and raised funds. And we're really excited. We announced our winners, I think it was just last week, announced our winners, Andrea Hogan, who's a senior director in marketing for Qualcomm. And many of you probably recognize Maddie Pham, one of our teen survivors who had a heart transplant at a very young age. She did phenomenal. She's a junior at Westview School. And together, all of these women, the 9 women, raised more than $70,000 towards the Go Red movement, which is really fantastic. So if you know them or you see them, please congratulate them. It was really a fun event. Nationally, we were recognized as one of the top campaigns, and we even had our national executive lead for the Go Red for Women movement joined us and served as the MC for a great virtual celebration that we had. So I say all that to say we are on a roll here in San Diego, getting some great attention nationally and regionally, and all of that is because of your support. So thank you again for your support of the Heart Association, for Go Red for Women. We're really growing here. We have great momentum that is not possible without you. So thank you. please keep spreading awareness, sharing information about Circle of Red, the difference that you're making about the Go Red for Women movement. Unfortunately, heart disease is still the #1 killer and stroke #5. So there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. As I said, we really look forward to hopefully being together in person soon. I really can't wait. And I know that, please know I'm vaccinated. And if you want to meet at any time, I am happy to meet with you, grab a cup of coffee. If you want to just learn a bit more about the latest and greatest and what's next and what we have going on at the Heart Association, I'd love to do that. So please reach out anytime. I'm happy to chat with you. With that, I'd love to turn it over to Donna Marie, who's going to introduce our guest speaker. Let's see, Donna Marie, were you able to come back on?
I'm here.
Okay, great.
I'm here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's so good to see everybody on this call. I'm very excited to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Dr. James Friend. Since 1949, the American Heart Association has invested $4.6 billion in cardiovascular research, second only to the federal government, and that is huge. Here in San Diego, we have more than $23 million awarded in research grants, research work going on right now. An important thing to know, last year, the American Heart Association received more requests for grant funding than it could actually fulfill. $817 million more dollars were needed to fulfill all the requests that the AHA received. That's how important it is for us to raise funds and to support the work, because this is groundbreaking and life-saving work the researchers are working on, which is very important to survivors like myself. Today, we're going to hear from one of the San Diego funded researchers and learn more about his groundbreaking work in stroke treatment. Dr. Friend leads the Medically Advanced Devices Laboratory in the Center for Medical Devices at UCSD, and is a professor in both the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, Jacobs School of Engineering, and the Department of Surgery in the School of Medicine. Also, just as a note, UCSD is also on the board of directors, and UCSD Health is a supporter of Go Red for Women. I'm looking forward to his presentation, and there'll be time for questions at the end. And with that, Dr. Friend, I'll turn it over to you.
Right. Thank you very much, Donna, and Christine. Thanks very much for having me on, and guests. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you about the work that we do. I just served on a panel, in fact, for the American Heart Association, where we assessed a bunch of research proposals, and I have to say, there's a lot of good work that gets done in trying to prepare these proposals, and young people are devising all sorts of treatments for the heart and vasculature into the future, and it really makes a huge difference on what we're able to do. There's a lot of promising things coming through. With us, and I know that our lab is a handful, but we tend to call it just Mad Lab. And so that's kind of the reason for the name of our laboratory. And what I want to talk to you today is about some technology that we have where we're trying to treat, there we go. We're trying to treat these issues of stroke and intervention in the endovasculature in the brain, and also the peripheral vasculature. This particular project has a number of people, and I'm very, very fortunate to be involved with these people, from my PhD student, Tilvawala Gopesh, who's just finishing up, to a number of medical practitioners. Some of you may know, actually, Alex Alessi, who is a pediatric neurointerventionist, and several of these other fine folks. And the American Heart Association has provided several grants to us in support of this work, for which I'm very grateful. As just mentioned, stroke is a third, on average, is the third leading cause of death in the United States. 500,000 deaths a year worldwide. But beyond just the human toll, there's also a financial toll. It was direct and indirect. that is just a terrible tragedy, really. And a lot of people think of it as an old people's disease, right? Probably each of us have been touched by someone, an elderly relative that has suffered from a stroke or an aneurysm, and yet over half the victims are less than 50 years old. And sadly, it's also growing, and particularly in China, but on average, it's 5% a year. And if you have a stroke, then one half of these people suffer significant disability. And so, it's a tremendous problem and a growing one. And, sort of the question always is, if you know someone or have to help them with the healthcare, what are the options? What can I do if it happens to me? And believe it or not, one of the options is to allow it to progress naturally. And there's a natural course of the disease, and the people that, have other conditions, perhaps that's the best choice. And there have been trials and so forth to try to say, well, maybe doing nothing is an option. Usually not. In the old days, it used to be very common to actually intervene, particularly in the neurovasculature, by having essentially open surgery. You go through a portion of the brain through a whole hole to actually intervene and clip off, say, an aneurysm, or to extract the blood clot responsible for a stroke. But that can be problematic, and it also has many adverse side effects. There's also the administration of drugs. Tissue plasminogen activator, or TPA, is a very, very common drug. There are others that are more powerful but more dangerous. And yet these are only effective about 60% of the time. And I don't know about you, but if you have luck like me, then I'll probably be in that 40%. And so, it's unfortunate, but that's the truth. It has been decided relatively recently, about the last 5 years, that actually intervention via the vasculature is the safest choice and the most effective choice. And this has been after a substantial amount of funding provided by various agencies, including the American Heart Association, to try to decide whether which way is the best way to actually treat these conditions within the brain. As it turns out, that navigation from the groin going up the aorta and then into the brain is the best choice, but there's a couple of issues. One is actually accessing the injury. And I'll show you the picture of the vasculature in a moment to kind of give you a picture, but navigating there to an injury can be a problem. And then once you're there, actually having the stability that you need to be able to treat the injury is also a problem. So, what I'm basically showing is the vasculature of a human body, and what is done nowadays is you go from the groin and go up into the aorta, and the aorta curves over the top of the heart. And what you're able to do is make essentially a right turn and then pass up in through the carotid arteries into the brain, and then perform some interventions. Once you get into the brain, however, the arteries are narrow, on average around 2.6 millimeters in diameter. That's roughly half the diameter of a pencil, and they are tortuous, meaning they have lots of junctures, and so that's a problem. Existing technologies use catheters that are about 3 human hairs in diameter and are 1.6 meters long. So here's some examples of what is done. They retrieve clots. They use as a sort of meshwork structure to try to fetch clots out of your brain. That can be difficult to do, but depending on where the clot is actually located. And you notice how it's sort of twisted vasculature. That's actually reality. The top part of the carotid artery, just as it enters the skull, has that bending in it that can make navigating farther into the brain to treat you more problematic. Likewise, if you have an aneurysm, which is a small blood sac off of the parent artery, it's possible to introduce coils, these wire coils like this one that's being deployed inside that sac to close off the flow, to slow it down, and then to form a clot. And then it remains there. But the idea is that once it's closed off, then it doesn't present a danger anymore of bursting, which can be devastating. And but there's a lot of problems with this. If we deploy a coil, then maybe a bit of the coil actually sticks out in the parent artery, Or you can put one coil in there, but you need 3 or 4. Well, the second and third coils, they took too long to actually deploy, or they didn't sit right. So it can be a bit of a problem. The stability at the injury location is an issue, therefore. There's also the matter of where these injuries are located. You can have cases where the injury is past a relatively tortuous part of the vasculature. The aneurysm can be in a place where you can't steer it to it, and or the shape is at a juncture where really you can't deploy coils. And the fundamental problem is that all the existing technologies that are out there are essentially glorified piano wire. They have bent tips that are fixed, and when they try to guide these structures up in there, it can work, but sometimes it doesn't. On the order of around 30% of the time, the interventions fail. And oftentimes what happens is that the first 3 or 4 times they try, it doesn't work, and they pull the entire catheter device out, start all over again, and you will, at the end of an intervention, you will see all of these devices laying all over the floor. And it's expensive, about $30,000 per procedure. So, there have been some alternative ideas that impose. Probably none of these would be that particularly special to you, but from piezoelectric to wire pulley mechanisms. If anybody remembers what it used to be like before cars had electric mirrors, you could steer the mirrors with a little knob inside the car. It had a little wire mechanism. There's actually versions of that have been tried in cardiac intervention and also neurovascular intervention. Also, magnetic fields have been tried, and to greater or lesser success. Most of them are not very safe. One of the things we recognize is that you can use balloon catheters for a variety of procedures as a clinician, and they're filled with saline, and they do all sorts of things like expand a stent, make the deployment of coils into an aneurysm very, very stable. And they make these little micro balloon catheters that are quite useful in treating the vasculature of the brain, and also, for that matter, peripheral vasculature, like your legs or arms, if you have occluded or clotted vasculature in those regions. Those catheter devices expand radially. They blow up like a balloon. Well, what would happen if we could actually make the balloon not blow up radially, but axially? And that was our innovation here, was that we made a structure that when it expands on one side axially only. It doesn't expand radially, because you don't want that to happen inside, the small arteries of the brain. We just wanted to have one side expand axially, and that causes it to steer. And if we do that with several of these very small passages around the periphery of these devices, then we can steer at will the end of this catheter. And this is actually go past my grad student working with one of these devices, and his thumb is operating the hand controller. This is a 25 centimeter prototype. We have 1.6 meter devices that we use now, but it's almost impossible to see because they're so long. And so that's why I show this video. The tip is 2 human hairs in diameter. And so we're able to steer remotely using saline, which is just a fluid that's essentially the same as your blood, but without the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And so if something goes wrong, then it is completely safe. So one of the questions we often get asked is, okay, well, it's fine to develop these devices, but how do you know that it might actually work? And so we actually had to invent something else, and that was a model of the human vasculature that we can test without risking somebody's life. So what we did is we took anonymized MRI data, basically MRI images of the vasculature of several people, and took that and then 3D printed structures to reproduce their most important vasculature from the legs up through the aorta, all the way up into the head. And this particular image here on the left-hand side actually has part of the vasculature within the brain, including, in this particular case, a patient that had an aneurysm. And what we're able to do is to take different examples of where an aneurysm might be in a difficult to treat location, or they have a new trainee perhaps. And so they have an easy to treat aneurysm. And so we swap out the silicone vasculature to give them an opportunity to test. And so with this, we have the blood flow and blood analog and all of that in order to make this device work. And that's how we first started testing these devices. And in comparison to the old traditional way to do these interventions from going up into the head. Then we moved to model using pigs, where what we did is we actually used the same sort of approach, went from the groin of the pig up into the neck, and steered around in the vasculature here. And it's a little difficult to see, but this is a fluoroscopy or an X-ray image of a live pig. And you can see the catheter being deployed here. The steerable tip is located here, and there's small little markers that show up on X-ray to make this obvious. And what we are looking at is blood flow comes up through this main artery here and goes into the peripheral arteries. And importantly, this tip is being steered so that we can deploy coils into this artery. It's never been possible to actually guide a catheter so that it can come back in the direction it came from. And what we've been able to show with this technology as we deploy the coils now, as you can see, is that you're able to turn these devices all the way around and deploy coils in regions that were always before impossible to navigate to. So that's where we are today. Where we're going now is that we've shown the ability to make extremely small devices. Some of our smallest devices are literally the diameter of a human hair. And so they provide the interventionist now with the ability to steer the tip from basically a yard away, and but do so almost immediately while they're watching what they're doing. And the thing of it is that navigation isn't the only thing that's needed in this endovascular space. A lot of doctors might wish to grab a little bit of tissue to check for calcification of the aorta, meaning if you need to have a valve replacement on your heart, they need to make sure that you don't have calcium around the aorta so that that intervention is safe. They also would like to be able to do other things like, suture to sew an injury up from within. Why would we need to actually cut the body open to actually perform an intervention like that? It doesn't make any sense. And so these are sort of things that we're pursuing now. Is beyond navigation, there's many other things. Indeed, all of the things you might wish to do as a surgeon from within the vasculature. Just wanted to mention that, I'm a part of a group that is keenly interested in a lot of these sort of problems, from treating congenital anomalies to looking at how the vasculature develops and how the neurology develops over time, and other steerable devices and so forth in our particular group at UC San Diego. I think you'd find that there's quite a few capable investigators besides our particular little group. And I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak to you a little bit about our research.
Hi, Dr. Friend. We want to thank you so very, very much. I was fascinated by what I heard, and I know that Christine was so excited for you to join us. You also did an incredible job of explaining it, so I think a lot of us really understood it and can see what you are accomplishing. Congratulations on this. I have personally had firsthand examples with my first husband, who has passed away, but had great success with heart catheters, the groin, the angioplasties, things like that. So this makes a lot of sense. And I think we have a few questions for you, if you're okay on that.
Absolutely, Linda. It's my pleasure, really. I welcome your questions.
Yes, we would love to see if anybody wants to ask. I think there probably will be a few. While we're waiting for a question to come up from Christine or the chat box, let me say that, can you, I guess there's a couple questions, what motivated you to really do this, and maybe some of the significant findings? Like, was there a learning that came along, or was there something that we said, wow, this is going to work because of these reasons? I'd love to know a little more about that. And then we'll probably have time to take a question if we see something come in the box.
Yeah, well, the motivation question is an interesting one. I worked on the technology called piezoelectric ultrasonic motors. It's a mouthful, but basically devices that make motion from vibration. And over the years, they became smaller and smaller. And I worked in Japan for a while, and they were very interested in making braille for mobile phones and very tiny motors for robotics and that type of thing. When I was in the US, I worked on a project with the Department of Energy on, of all things, nuclear weapon fuses as a grad student for using the similar devices. And it was all, it was never really very satisfying, I have to say. And so when I lived in Australia for a decade after I moved out of Japan. And so I started working with brain surgeons there. And my grandmother, about that time, had a medical misadventure. Her doctor took her off her blood pressure medication, and she had an aneurysm. And it was a devastating one. It burst, and it was difficult to watch who my grandmother was get lost. And the person that was there was still my grandmother, but I think you understand what I'm saying. And so I decided that I would do what I could with the gifts I had been given to try to make a difference. And at the time we worked on, actually, I had shown earlier the piezoelectric versions, these little motors and these steerable devices, but they were never very durable and that type of thing. So that's the reason I pursued this technology. I suppose that when we first started realizing it was going to work is that the video that you're seeing here shows the end of this device working from a controller a yard away. And a lot of the community that works in fluid mechanics said you cannot have fluid passing through a chamber that's the diameter of a human hair for over a yard and expect something like this to work. And I thought, well, maybe not. And the student tried it, and when it worked, that's when I knew.
Isn't it great that it became a personal thing too? I think that's absolutely wonderful. We do have one question, and then maybe we'll come back to mine if we had time. This one's from Donna Marie. Let me see if I can pull it up again. She says, when someone comes into the ER with a stroke, is TPA no longer the first treatment? ? Do you do a scan first to find out where the clot is in the brain and then determine what procedure to perform?
Well, I can tell you what's called the run sheet in the UC healthcare system. And I think Sharp and a few of the other institutions are similar, that they say that brain is time, or time is brain, sorry. So the idea is to move as fast as humanly possible to arrange a treatment. So that's written in big words across the care sheet for patients. So whatever is necessary to get you an appropriate treatment as quick as possible, that's actually what's done, because they know that your brain is at risk, and the outcomes fall precipitously after the first 4 hours. If you don't get effective treatment in 4 hours, then it's not so good. So to answer your question, Donna, typically TPA is tissue plasminogen activator is provided to most patients that don't have any other comorbidities, meaning other conditions that give the interventionist concern, the doctor concern that administering TPA would be a mistake. For example, if you're already on heparin treatment, or there is you might, if you have for example a replacement heart valve, if you have a what's called a TVAR, a heart assistant device, that type of thing, they may not administer TPA. They may go on ahead and do a CT scan, or if it's available, they'll do an MRI to try to assess what's going on. I think, though, the standard of care is to administer TPA when in doubt, because TPA can basically it's the solution for patients when in doubt.
A great answer. I think that the time element, I know you said that, and we've had a couple of guest speakers on stroke and the severity, and obviously some of us that, have had friends' heart situations. It's a big change if people get in immediately. So this, move quickly in the FAST program is important. We'd love to take, I'm looking at the time that I have left with you. If you could take maybe 2 minutes or less, if that works for you, to go through the first question and see if you have any, will you share a significant learning or one maybe early? I'd love that.
Did anyone else have questions too? I want to make sure that we. No.
Sorry, Linda, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Do you have a significant learning that you could share? Like something that happened or what you'd learned that maybe you didn't expect going into some of the research with?
Oh, with this research? Oh, well.
Yes, please.
Yeah, certainly. With this particular research, making something at this size is an extraordinary challenge. Right. Let me put it this way. Have you ever noticed, like it's May gray, right? And you look at if you leave your car outside, you'll notice on the windshield how the droplets will form from the mist, right? And you have to use your windshield wipers. On the other hand, if it's been raining, then there are still water droplets, and they descend on the windshield without a problem. And there's a reason for that, because the forces that are responsible for keeping the droplet adhered stuck on the glass are about the same as the force of gravity when the droplet is about it is a couple of millimeters diameter, or like about 1/10 of an inch in diameter. And so when these devices are about at that same scale, and what happens is that you try to pick something up with a pair of tweezers as you're trying to put something together, you can't drop it. You shake your tweezers and you can't drop it. You try to devise a clever way to, for example, in the video I'm showing here, we have different materials that are combined together to produce this object. You try to combine those materials together so that they remain fastened, and yet something else will interfere with it in such a way that you can't take everything apart. You cast the structure and something doesn't happen. I never would have guessed it would be so difficult to actually make the devices at this scale when I have roughly, something like 20 years experience in making things all the way down to the nanoscale, much smaller scale, and then much larger scales. That's a learning from my engineering perspective. The other thing I think of would be, from a clinical perspective and a treatment aspect, we thought initially that we would, the navigation was the key. That being able to go up around in the vasculature was really hard. And so this would be a boon to actually solve that problem. What it turns out is that isn't as important a problem as, once you get to an injured location, you need to make sure that device, that thing that you're using, that tool, remains stable. And when you're doing whatever it is you're wishing to do, if something shifts, then you need to have the ability to reorient it back like it was before. And being able to do that has been a revelation for the interventionists. So I think those have probably been the two key things that we have learned, for me anyway.
Well, that's, I don't know. I feel like I've learned so much just listening to you. I hope everybody else agrees. Did we miss a question, Christine? Is there anything else? Anybody else want to ask?
Pat,
We could always get questions too, and I'm sure Dr. Friend would answer.
Oh, Nikki, sorry, Nikki, did you have a question? I saw you raise your hand.
Question,
Nick.
yes. The thing I love the research, and you would hope that when you walked, as Donna Marie asked the question about when you're in that emergency room, what's the protocol going to be? So when will this be accepted protocol that will be one of the options that's readily available, say in a sharp emergency room or your emergency or scripts emergency?
That's always a interesting question. Of the disciplines of medical care, neurosurgery is probably one of the most conservative, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And I promised Christine I was going to show you. I have this photograph, and I used to show it, a photograph of 14th century surgical instruments, and I would set it aside neurosurgery instruments, and then ask the audience to tell me which is which. And very often you can't tell the difference between the two. And it's honestly a little more than shocking. But one of the reasons is because anytime you try to introduce a new technology, you need to prove that you're doing no harm, that there's a net benefit. And but to answer your question, we've done large animal trials now. We're on the route to do first in humans. I think we're probably going to do that in Australia. A lot of it depends on funding, frankly, but first in humans. If we do first in humans, then I think we'll be at the point to where we attract the interest of companies like Stryker, Covidian, these companies that have the networks to provide this technology to these care facilities across the world. And so they pick up the technology and then they take it. And so then you would see, say, a Covidian SL22, and that's actually this technology. Okay. So it's anybody's guess. The role that I feel that I have and I function best at is to prove that whatever roadblocks there may be, they're not technological. That I can't do anything about somebody making a lot of money off of it. I can't do anything about a regulatory approval, but I can at least get the technology taken care of. But my guess would be anywhere 5 years or something like that. We've been doing this for a while. I've been working on this type of thing for about 10 years now.
Long time to get it to the emergency room.
It's giving me gray hair.
Yeah, but good question, Nikki. Thank you. It puts it all back to, I'm glad AHA was able to do some funding with this. And yeah, that's a very important part. We're going to say thank you to you for now. We're going to tell you great work and good luck with all of this. And again, your dedication is incredible. And we really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frank. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Okay, now it is my pleasure to introduce a second guest that I actually think you will know from so Chef Leslie with VEBA Resource Center has joined us today because many of you and many of us loved her healthy eating ideas and tips while we were all collecting all these recipes during the Go Red for Women event. And before that whole year with COVID, she actually took us on a better path with some tips. So we've asked her to come back tonight and help you get ready for maybe a lunch or a patio thing or something with the summer. So she's going to actually demonstrate another one of her recipes. And we have actually put this recipe together for all of you. So she's going to make the avocado tuna fish boats tonight. And we'll have the recipe up. If you don't have it, we can make sure we email it back out. So without further ado, because I know she has a very hard stop tonight, I want to be very respectful of the rest of the program. So go ahead, guest speaker, Chef Leslie.
Oh my gosh, thank you for such a great introduction. This is amazing. And yes, this recipe, one of the things we celebrate at VEBA or the VEBA Resource Center is just fresh, flavorful food. We don't even want to say to people, you need to eat this because it's healthy. We celebrate it that way. And we teach from a standpoint of encouraging people to add more of this to their diets, because I know that my brain is such, if somebody says to me, you need to go on this diet, so to speak, this thing, and you need to eliminate XYZ PDQ, unless there's a really strong medical reason for it, my brain does this. So what happens when someone says you can't have that? You start thinking about it. So there was this one time I decided to play around with different sort of fad diets, and I found this one that was 16 bananas a day. Really silly. I was just trying it on myself. I mean, yeah, I hope you all are really laughing. I know you're on mute, but I'd love to hear the chuckles on that. And, all of a sudden the idea of eating, because I was only eating bananas I lasted about 1.6 days. The idea of having steamed bok choy just sounds so enticing at that point, because like, I can't have it. So I want steamed bok choy. I want anything like that. But instead, we want to say to people, add more of this, add more of these whole foods, add more of these spices and herbs. And that's what we did in this recipe tonight, is we're adding flavor through lime juice and cilantro and jalapenos and tomatoes. And we also want to make recipes really simple for people to make, because the 3 barriers that we hear often are, I can't cook healthy. I don't know how to do it. It is too expensive to eat healthy, and I don't have time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. So my job as the chef instructor at the VEBA Resource Center is to say, I'm going to debunk all of that. I'm going to show you how to make really flavorful, great recipes with things that you can find in every grocery store that are very sort of, I hesitate to use the word plant-based, but kind of celebrate a lot of fibrous foods, because I really think that if you can get that fiber content up, and that keeps people full, it keeps them satiated. And then we're working with omega-3s with the tuna tonight. And then, we're all in Southern California, or most of us are anyway. So we have the avocado, right? So I'm just going to quickly show you how to put this together. And I took one modification I took in this is, because people are pressed for time often, I actually substituted frozen corn, and instead of taking it off the ear, I just quickly defrosted it. And that way you can go home and have a quick meal that checks all the boxes for the macronutrients. It checks the healthy fats with the tuna and the avocado. And I'm going to put this in the chat, and maybe Christine can get an answer, or Danielle. How many grams of fiber do you think are in one avocado? Just see if anybody knows the answer. But we're going to make a quick corn salsa while you're answering that. And then I'm going to also take tuna and celery and a little bit of Greek yogurt, and mix that in, and some ground pepper and some lemon. And then I'm just going to take the avocado. So let me put this down on my board here and show you what I'm doing. And I think I see a lot of good responses in this chat. I think people do know the answer to this.
So I said 2, Erin said 6, Donna Marie said 10.
Donna Marie, you nailed it.
Oh my gosh, my first reaction was, there's fiber in avocado. That was my first reaction.
It's funny because that's a lot of people's. They think fat just doesn't have
the healthy
fiber.
fat. Yeah.
I eat avocados every day.
Oh.
You can put them on your face, right? For a little moisturizer. No, I'm not going to do that in front of you all, but you could do that theoretically. But yes, they have 10 grams of fiber. So you have fat with fiber. The same holds true for nut butters, right? Nuts, things like that. So I'm always kind of teaching the game on how to get more fiber in your diet, regardless of if you eat vegetarian, vegan, paleo, keto, whatever that is. We want to keep that going. So I love that with the avocado. And then you just put that on a plate, just like this. Present it. Now I'm going to take this corn salsa that the avocados cut, and you can squeeze those with lemon juice. That'll keep them from browning a little longer. Eventually these will turn brown. So I usually will just do this right before serving. And then the corn salsa is just going to be corn. You can use some jalapeno pepper, tomato, cilantro, red onion or green onion. I actually had green onion here at my house. And then some lime. And then if you're feeling adventuresome, I would actually pull out your spices too. You could add some cumin, some coriander, which is ground cilantro seed, essentially, chili powder, oregano. All those things add a lot of flavor without adding sodium. And so for people who are on low sodium diets, who are watching that, we try to teach them how to figure out how to add flavors without adding salt. I think that's important. And then the other thing is, people do eat with their eyes. I come from the restaurant background. So if you look at this, you've got really pretty red and yellow and light green, and then the darkness from the corned bean char. So the simple way to make this is, we've got the tuna and some celery in there for crunch and fiber. And if you think of classic tuna salad, my mother used to make it with onion and celery. And then I'm just going to grind some black pepper to pop that. Now, if you're somebody who's a real spice fan, maybe you add a couple of drops of hot sauce. I might lemon that up just a little more. And then what we're also finding is Greek yogurt, because its consistency is really thick, you just need a little bit combined with tuna. And that flavor profile with the tang of the yogurt really complements the fat viscosity in the avocado. And you don't need a lot. This is so easy. And what I like about this is if we ever get people who don't have a lot of what I call kitchen confidence, not comfortable in the kitchen, I don't say to people, cook your own meals. I actually use the words prepare your own meals, because that's what I'm doing right now. I use the microwave on the corn, I'll be honest with you. And then everything else is just kind of the stir and add together. But it's checking a lot of boxes here. So I've gotten that tuna combined. I'm going to take most of the corn salsa and fold that in, so it's kind of pretty. And then we're just going to pack it into the avocados. And if you feel like your avocado doesn't have a big enough divot where the pit was, you could actually go a little farther and take it out. And I just throw the avocado back in the bowl, right? Like that. And just use it as part of my mash in there, because it's, you know, and then we can layer it in there. And you could add more cilantro. You could add a little bit of shredded red cabbage. It's when you read a recipe, unless it's very specific, like a baking recipe, which is more like a chemistry project. A lot of times I'll do what's called like the clean out the fridge and add the vegetables. You know, I might add some grated carrot because I'm sitting on a pound of carrots. You just thinking about how to add color and fiber and flavor and different vegetable options. So we're just going to pile that in like that. And then I'm going to take that remaining corn salsa and I'm just going to layer it on top of the avocado like that. So it's really, really a simple dish. And what you know about fat is it actually keeps you pretty full, right? It provides satiety, and you have that in the avocado. And it kind of just checks all the boxes. So corn is actually a whole grain. So if you're talking about Mediterranean diet, we have the whole grain in the corn, and then you've got the tomatoes, the peppers, the cilantro, the fish. And I think people who are kind of struggling to figure out how to do flavors and layers of things will be very comfortable making this type of dish. And we have a doctor on our team who's a culinary medicine doctor. And so a lot of times she meets patients where they're at, they've never been in a kitchen, and we try to promote recipes like this that are so easy to make, and then they build their kitchen confidence. So are there any questions about that particular dish or anything that goes on in your kitchen or pertaining to food in general?
That looked delicious. I was like, we should not have done this right before dinner.
That's really
right.
Christmas, right?
You know, one more time, we love your presentation. I told Christine it was really important that you gave us some tips along the way. You just never stop between the tips, the health guides. You're just amazing. Anybody want to ask her a quick question or two?
Can I go off?
What spice did you say was like basically cilantro? Was that coriander you said? It's like,
yeah, so cilantro,
I didn't realize that.
Leaves of the coriander.
Leaves, right.
Yeah, and then the seeds, which have a different specific flavor. And I would have to bet that most people on this call, if not all, have somebody that they know that doesn't like cilantro. Does everybody have one of those? And the reason is there's a certain gene, right? If you have that gene and you eat the cilantro, it tastes like soapy water, from what I'm told. But for whatever reason, coriander seeds are typically okay with coriander seeds. And so ground coriander seed almost has that little bit of a lemony, sort of smoky flavor, if you will. I don't want to say like it's not like smoked paprika, but it just adds another layer of complexity. So I really encourage our members that come to our classes to find 2 or 3 spices that they like to work with and add that as the flavor. And then at the end, if they feel like they need it, maybe add the salt, but really figure out how to work with the spices and herbs. Today we did a quinoa salad that had so much chopped mint and cilantro and lime juice and orange juice. And that's what we were doing in a day class today. And that just celebrates a lot of flavor. And that's what we encourage to do here.
Yeah, you definitely talk the flavors, and it does make a big difference. The flavor add, and I didn't know how the corn would come across, but it, like you said, it looks great. I'm sure it is fabulous.
Exactly. I'll eat it just to prove that I'm not just.
Yeah, you can eat it.
I'll be
right.
making that for lunch
you.
tomorrow.
We're going to make you come back again, and I want to really thank VEBA. They always say that, you know, they always do everything we've asked, and you have been a delight the second time, and I hope we get you again sometime.
I hope so too. And think about these oatmeal, nut butter, sort of healthy, sweet truffles for the next time.
Okay. All right. You got our attention now. Thank you again, Chef Leslie. We hope everybody will have a good evening.
Having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you again. We appreciate your time. We hope everybody got the recipe and wants to try this. Also, too, you can go on our website, and we have lots of AHA recipes on the website too, and cookbooks. So please feel free to do that. I'm going to move a little quickly through this because I have two topics to go through with you. So the first will be of great interest. As a group of Circle of Red, we're committed to raising awareness for cardiovascular disease and stroke in women, which unfortunately we all know is the #1 killer of women. We are making terrific strides in San Diego, and Christine shared that with you. I wanted you to see how that really has looked over the past 3 years, how it's looked over the past 15 months, and yes, the pandemic. And in May, many of you were able to get together with us for the photo shoot, which was our third annual one for Giving Back Magazine. They were delightful about saying they were going to be able to move the coverage into June. So here's the slide, and we don't have the photo exact yet. You know, they're very protective of the magazine, obviously, and looking at it till the end, which will be a nice article about Go Red for Women and what it does for Go Red for Women and Circle of Red and Giving Back Magazine together. So the reality, we did get to do this, and as you can see, we're all very distanced, and this will be the June issue, which is right in line with the focus on the AHA mission and what Circle of Red members like you all help us to do, and what great Go Red for Women is doing locally to give back and raise awareness on the importance of this cause for, like we heard tonight, our brain and our heart health. I know you're as excited as I am, and everybody on the call is, to see the actual magazine, and as soon as we get it, we'll make sure everyone gets a copy. The photo shoot was a lot of fun, and I was happy to see that we can help spread this awareness because it's critical here. Plus, across the country, there are other Circle of Red groups. So we want to thank all of you for joining the photo shoot. And I want you to know that supporting AHA by being members of Circle of Red in San Diego. We appreciate all of you so much and your support. And I'm delighted to say that so many of you renew year after year, and we thank you for that. We know that signals that you understand the mission and the need for us to learn more, plus be out there with the awareness cause, because this is what AHA is trying to do, is save lives. So we have a few facts about Circle of Red. I knew you'd want to hear them. So are you ready? There are 2,336, so over 2,000 members of Circle of Red across the country. That number surprised me. In 117 divisions, collectively, we raise across the country. They say at least 4.5 million, so I'm going to say we're really close to $5 million every year that funds the American Heart Association and the important work, like what we heard tonight. Not only Dr. Friend, but even what Chef Leslie's trying to do, and other guests that we've had for stroke and heart health. So it's very, very important. And, you know, Christine interviewed about 4, and we were impressed with all of them. So we'll continue to have them on the quarterly, you know, we used to call them lunch and learns. Christine tells me, which I think is so cute, that San Diego is actually looked at as a great example as an active Circle of Red group with quarterly meetings and activities. And I always want to know what they're doing, and we'd like to share that. So in that spirit, here's a couple of what the other groups do. And then we'll give you some ways to tell us what you'd like to do. So the other groups do things like succulent plant class. They've done
didn't get the pictures from them, Linda, just so you know. They didn't have pictures for me.
Okay. Oh, okay, then I'll continue to talk. The CPR hands-only training, which we actually did at Mike's and my condo, maybe January of 18, once it was really well attended. They've done the red wine tasting and build your own, I guess they've done the Mediterranean diet and charcuterie boards, and also we thought maybe we would poll you because we come up with the ideas. Some of you tell us that you really like the research, and I always found that that's something when giving back societies, enjoy seeing what's happening. But we have some things that we want to see if you would like to do, or kind of maybe somebody will want to have us go to their backyard or we're at their home, and we can still say outdoors if you want, and maybe to do this, or we'll find some events and places to do them. But here's where we're going to say, so vote on your favorites or type into the chat. If you want to come off mute and do that, that's fine too. So wine tasting, olive oil tasting, a tour of a research facility. And remember, some of these facilities actually have board members with AHA, so we have some access to that. The hands-only CPR training, we could repeat that. It was very well attended. And we actually had Dimitri and his family come, and he's the third grade child a couple of years ago that helped save his mother's life. Yoga or stretching, maybe a cooking class. And then I always love the idea of maybe we do a plant class, or maybe you'd like to do more herb garden, tips for getting a great herb garden running. So can we see what your responses are going to be? Type them in. Or tell us.
Looks like people like wine tasting, Linda. That doesn't surprise me, right? Love a good
Okay.
and cooking class. Looks like a yoga or stretching class could be popular too.
I think VEBA would host us and let Chef Leslie.
Plant class. All of them have interests. Let's say that.
Say it again.
Everyone is getting some votes. All of these are
Okay.
getting some votes.
Okay. Oh,
So we picked some good ideas. Plant class.
plant class or herb? Yeah.
Yep, our herb.
garden.
Yeah, I like that idea, herb garden.
Should we get back to them later now that we have a couple ideas? Is
Yeah,
that the way
let's
you want
do
to go?
that. That's a good idea.
Okay, thank you everybody for that. Circle of Red, as you well know, is a part of the Go Red for Women movement. And it's a year-long, I gotta stop for a second. Why? I think I would vote for the very bottom one. The cooking is great, the yoga, this is great, guys. Well, we do it quarterly, so we need some things. And then if anybody, and we don't want to pressure anybody, if you feel at some point in time down the road that maybe somewhere we could host this or you can do it, let us know that too. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see this. Okay, so I started to say the Circle of Red is part of the bigger picture, the Go Red for Women movement, which is a year-long campaign. And obviously it's to spread the awareness of cardiovascular disease throughout San Diego. And I do think the timing of this Giving Back magazine in June will be an interesting learn for us, because we're used to having it for the January issue coming out for beginning of February for the Go Red for Women month and heart health. So I think it's going to be timely because, as many of you do know, it's the fiscal year end for the American Heart Association. So we always kind of push out a pledge time, a time to see. And I've been thinking how we can grow our Circle of Red group, because I think we've said it many times, we've gone from the 2 to over the 20, and you've all been so great about doing it. But as we grow ours, I also think that across the country, people are going to start to grow this quickly. So if we went from the 20 to the 40, I really think we can do that. And I would like to put a challenge out there for San Diego Circle of Red members that you join me in a match. And I know Donna Marie will probably say the same thing. If each of us can get one person, then another person gets another person, another person gets another person. And you all say, how am I going to do that? And you're all such great members. We know that you join because you enjoy this and you feel you get something from it. It's not a big time ask, which I think a lot of people like Nikki Clay probably couldn't do another big time commitment. And I know others on the call the same thing, but it is a very good group of large presence, because they're elite women and distinguished women that are leaders in the community and people who can help grow awareness and support this cause. So I think if you feel good about being in this organization and you feel good, it resonates with you, and asking someone to say, I've been thinking, because I have to be honest, I got my daughter-in-law to do this, and I just said, with your background and what you do medically, I think you'd enjoy this group. And she's got little kids, she works crazy, and John's at home working this year, and she still has attended every single thing. So I think you can all, if you could help us, we would be very, very appreciative. And we don't, when I talk to somebody and tell them how I think they can connect with the mission and what American Heart's doing, you have a 100-year history. You have a nonprofit that gives back for research right in the community. And then you can invite them. Maybe we say, you can come to one of the outdoor events if they'd like to just learn more. And I always find if I get them to say interested, and I always say, I really think you'd enjoy this. And the ones who want to do more and have more time to do more, then they can be involved with things like ELT and other things. And AHA is great like that as a volunteer. But if you end up wanting to do this, we can send them this in front of you. That's why your support matters, what Circle of Red membership is, and how why you join, why we need you. And I think we can grow this really, really well. So I would love to have you guys help match us on that. And June is critical. So hanging up today and getting off this call and thinking if this was motivating to you, maybe you can help us with that. Okay, so in the spirit of some gifts, because you all love gifts, if you can have somebody have some interest in to join, the membership is paid annually, or they can take it in 4 payments. So I've never had that be the stopper, honestly. I've had how I can get them feeling that they're going to enjoy doing this. So if you recruit a friend to join, you both can receive the AHA cutting board. I have to work on this because I love this gift, and heart measuring spoon set. Okay, so yes, we had gifts, we promised. All right, the next part I would like to do is tell you that we also plan to have our upcoming meetings so that we could have a friend join us if you want. That's an easy way to say, come and see if you like it. And we've got the dates in front of us. So we're just about, believe it or not, we're all going to go into summer and hopefully get out and enjoy that living again and to be safe. And then in September, we'll start back with the next Circle of Red meeting. We'll try to incorporate one of your suggestions. And then we do it in November. And then we'll try to have the photo shoot. And then in December, usually, because it's the push for the January for the Go Red for Women experience in February. And we have a date. We're Friday, February 25th. And our intention is this is a live experience. So promises, but cross your fingers. And then you've done this one tonight, so it'll be a year before you do the final one again. So I want to thank every one of you. And I really think we all should give an applause to Danielle and to Christine for everything they do. They put all this together and work so hard. And it's just a delight to have a group like this. Thank you all for being a part of it.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We're so grateful for you, so thank you.
Great program.
This is a really good program. Thank you so much for putting this together.
Yes, thank you. I hope you all have a great evening.
All right then, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Be safe.